Okay, if there are no questions, then we will acknowledge and file the reports for the audit. Director's report.
Hi, everyone. We made it to November. Yay, us. So the annual JA Audit and Finance Committee will meet on December 11th to determine the fees for 2026. 2025 was accepted a year ago, and we do this in order to give libraries a lot of time to plan and do the necessary budgeting to meet the expense. It's going to be December 11th at 9:30 in the morning at the Clifton Park Half Moon Library. And in the past, the fees were determined by the number of items held by the library and the circulation. And then it was all figured out and we knew what the bottom line budget we needed to meet. And that's how it was discovered. It was a ratio. Schenectady will not be participating in the joint automation project beginning January 1st. This is going to have an implication on the budgeting and the amount of fees libraries are going to need to pay. So I'm suggesting that we think about ways to help meet the expense, but not have it on the backs of our libraries when they had no responsibility whatsoever in or determination and why the Schenectady board selected to leave the joint automation project. So that might have implications on our budget for 2026. We're able to make the budget for 2025. One staff member left at the beginning of this year, and that position was not filled. And being very fiscally conservative with the budget and looking at some of the reserve, that's how we are getting through 2025. I don't know what the implications are in 2026. It'd be nice if some of the SALS board members were there to be part of this conversation. And I've asked Eric, as the chair of the Audit and Finance Committee, the Joint Automation Project, to share before the meeting some of his thoughts. So we're not seeing it for the first time at the JA Audit and Finance meeting.
Sarah, when's that meeting again?
December 11th, 9:30, Clifton Park Half Moon Library.
Thank you.
So since I brought up Schenectady, I'll say that on Sunday, November 24th, III or Clarivet, who's the vendor, will do a data transfer of CPL Schenectady County Public Library patrons and holdings at the close of business around 5:30 on November 24th, which is a Sunday. And after that, Schenectady will be then on its own separate catalog. So now Schenectady County, and I'm starting to get emails from people who live in Schenectady County, by the way. They can still borrow. Schenectady County residents can still borrow materials from SALS libraries. And it's dependent upon each of our member libraries' borrowing policies. But the patron will not be able to go into their Schenectady County Public Library catalog to place the holds. They would have to go back into the catalog that they had been using, the shared catalog of the rest of the SALS libraries and MDLS libraries. Now they can place reserves on materials, but they have to pick them up at a library that's still part of that shared catalog. And the reason why is the Schenectady catalog, the new Schenectady catalog, doesn't speak to the shared catalog that everybody's using. So if a book shows up in Schenectady, they're not gonna know who to call to say, come borrow the book.
So will the patron number remain the patron number for Schenectady? I mean, that's how you go into,
Okay, there are two things here. The Schenectady County Public Library number will be recognized in our catalog, in our
Okay.
shared catalog. And there's a lot of work being done by the JA behind the scenes. And Jill, if I'm saying anything wrong, please jump in. I want
The only thing I would,
Please.
the only thing I would clarify is that existing Schenectady County Public Library cards will be recognized by our catalog. New cards that they issue in their catalog won't be recognized, and those patrons can visit any other MBLS or SALS library to get a card.
It's like saying you shop at Macy's and you shop at Boscov's, and they're both in Colony Center. But Boscov isn't gonna know if you owe money on your Macy's account.
I like that analogy.
That's a great analogy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that if somebody borrows a book with a Schenectady card number with a special statistical code, they would need to go into this shared catalog and then select a library that's on the shared catalog still. So if a Scotia person wants to borrow a book from Burnt Hills, they would need to pick it up in Burnt Hills. It can't be sent to a Schenectady. That's a different process. That's like an interlibrary loan.
But if they wanted to get a book from Easton, they could go to Burnt Hills and pick it up there.
Correct.
Sarah, what were the fees, that Schenectady paid per year?
I have that on my desk. Do you have does anybody have the JA fees available?
You want me to get it off your desk, Sarah?
Yes,
Somebody has it. They might beat me. I saw it.
it's a very pretty colored chart.
Does this affect the RDOF contract in any way?
no, just that they won't be going there.
One for. It's 142,000 for 2025. That's what is that for? No, 2025.
Okay.
So in 2024, the fees were 137,000. And in 2025, it would have been 142,000.
And what were the total JA fees?
733.
Yes.
733 didn't include the SCTL for 2025.
So we can absorb the 2025 fees.
Who's we?
South,
We, all of us, everyone
the
who's
libraries.
participating, we're able to absorb the 2025
So
fees.
let's avoid pronouns, because part of the thing I'm having trouble with, and I was gonna come back to this in the follow-up to your original comments, there's a lot of sort of dual citizenship between SALS and JA and that sort of thing, and so the pronouns get me tangled. Your statement was that the 2025 plan, there'll be no contribution from SEPL into the JA fees for 2025.
Right,
Okay, so we're down effectively $142,000.
right. And in the 2025 budget.
Yeah.
Because a staff person left and we're
Yeah.
not filling it,
Yeah.
and some very conservative fiscal spendings and things, we're okay for 2025.
So again, there's we. We're okay.
SALS, we
Yeah,
as
let's-
SALS putting in money,
Let's pause for a
all
second.
of
So
the
member
libraries.
Mohawk libraries and all of the member libraries.
talk to me like I'm eight.
Sorry.
What you're telling, no, I'm asking you to, I'm telling, so what you're telling me is that without the SEPL contribution, JA's operating costs are such that the existing contributions from the member libraries and SALS and MPLS for that matter, cover the operating expense of JA.
Correct.
So JA is solid for providing the services they provide. SALS doesn't have to tweak its budget, MPLS doesn't have to tweak their budget. Life is good for 2025.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then you mentioned in here about 2026, contemplating how we approach that
How we as
at
SALS,
SALS, yes.
Mohawk Valley, and all of the libraries that are still participating in the joint automation.
So to expect that JA will put up a request that supports their operating costs for 2026.
I would think so.
Their board of trustees is kind of obligated to, right? They
The
can't-
joint automation board of trustees is you,
Yeah.
is the SALS board and the MBLS board.
So that's the dual citizenship I'm thinking about. So if the SALS board and the MVLS board are gonna serve JA's interests when they're having a JA meeting, then clearly you have to plan that there's gonna be a per customer expense increase unless you somehow manage to improve your efficiency in delivering services in 2026. That cost is going to be passed on to the customers from a JA perspective.
Will be done.
Of what's the alternative?
Big sales.
You said we don't know that. What's the
We
alternative?
don't know how much I said.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Whether
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
numbers,
So that's
whether
right,
it's
yeah.
just
So if they have operating efficiency improvements or something like that, the overall cost could go down and therefore the cost of the remaining participants would, reflect that.
Very.
Not,
If.
yeah, that's right. But there was a statement that talked about your preference that SALS libraries, SALS and SALS libraries, which are sort of two different entities, but sort of the same entity, shouldn't bear the cost of a decision that's outside of their control
That's my editorial opinion.
piece. And so the question is, I believe the rest of this board, needs to come up with a position that contemplates the editorial comments of stakeholders. And you and I had a quick sidebar. I don't hold the same view necessarily, though I'm open to being convinced. Because, yeah, it's certainly exogenous cost to the operating libraries within SALS, but it is a reality for JA. You can't just eat the cost of SCPL walking away and say, wish that didn't happen, but it did, so we won't pass on that cost. I think they're going to, and I think they probably should, which is unfortunate for the people who are left behind, but it's not JA's fault either that SALS left, or that SCPL left.
And that's why it's important that you all, as many of you, be part of that discussion
Mhm.
on the 11th.
Good.
And once formulas are developed, I'll share it ahead of the meeting.
Good.
As soon as I can, because I think strength is having the data and understanding.
So I presume that in the 11th, it's a data gathering from the perspective of SALS. SALS isn't gonna go there with a position or an understanding of what 2026 is gonna, how 2026 is gonna frame. Is that a fair assumption, or?
I think, and this is you as the board, I think there's a responsibility. We have libraries that while it doesn't look like a whole lot of money, it's a lot for their little rural budgets. And also, our larger libraries, Crandall,
Hmm.
Clifton Park, Half Moon, Burnt Hills, Saratoga, Clifton Park.
Hmm.
Because they are being used so much, it's not fair to them either to absorb the cost, because they're gonna be, because we're currently based on holdings and circulation. That's the formula we use.
So I understand the formula. I guess the conclusion, though, feels like a continuation of the editorial as opposed to a conscious decision. Is that fair? Because I don't know that we've established, I'm willing to be convinced of what you just described and potentially sign up to it, but I'm not that yet there.
Good.
So.
I think it's important to have all the different voices so that we make the right decision for our members and for our budget too.
The reduction in expenses for 2025, a lot of those will carry over to 2026 though.
Mhm.
Because if they don't have to hire another person, which they probably won't have to. Plus, there's other things besides the payroll. There's a lot of things of the software things that are based on the number of bodies that are.
Not anymore. We're in the process of negotiating a new contract with I.
So,
But we should be able to negotiate it down with fewer.
We tried, but they changed it. They do a tier system. And even with the reduction of population from Schenectady County, we're still in the lowest tier. It's not gonna
We
mean
can't get any
anything.
lower.
so Bob, I don't accept the argument, and I'll tell you why. It's arguing against the very reason the JAA exists. JAA exists for an economy of scales purpose, right? And so by decreasing the scale, you cannot improve the economy. You can't. Now, it won't necessarily be linear. One or the other of those has to be false, right?
I mean, it's not going to be, we're not going to take a hit for the whole $144,000.
Agreed. Yeah,
I
that
mean,
makes
it
sense.
could be a very minor amount when you get all done.
Absolutely, but I'm wary of establishing a position that says there's not gonna, and getting it sort of, accepted across the community that there's not going to be an impact. I mean, we're working.
No, I'm just saying that what we need to do is we need to wait until we know what the numbers
I
are.
agree, but in the meantime, the messaging that comes out of SALS to the libraries can't be that there isn't going to be an impact. We would love that there wasn't an impact, but we don't know that.
I don't think anyone's saying that there's not gonna be an impact. We're saying that we wanna hold it to this,
Okay, so
these term as possible.
fair, okay, so, and I guess in close conjunction with that is the argument that there shouldn't be an impact. If we habitualize that message, there'll become an expectation among our libraries that there shouldn't be an increase. And when the realities of it break out that there does have to be one, then we're gonna end up having to go back to our member libraries explaining why, despite the fact we've been telling them from today until when we actually know the answer, that there shouldn't be an increase, there's gonna be an increase.
I don't think anyone said that there shouldn't be an increase.
Oh, I heard it this morning. I heard it right here this morning.
No. I mean, I've already told my board when Schenectady pulled out that I learned here that there was gonna be an impact. We didn't know what it was gonna be.
Good. I like
And
that.
probably, that we were gonna be asked for more money. But I didn't know how much and I didn't know exactly when.
I may have misinterpreted what you said.
So,
and
that
it's-
was 2 board meetings ago that I
Good.
told them that. So I
Good.
heard that here, because.
Yeah.
Where else would I be?
I hear it, and I like that message. I feel like I'm getting a different nuance from your comment this morning, sir.
I think we wanted to make it as little an impact, and it might mean that SALS puts in a bigger chunk, so it doesn't impact the smaller libraries or the member libraries unfairly.
So Tom, that's what I'm hearing heard too, so I don't know whether you're hearing the same thing and you just have different feelings about it, maybe, your opinion is different, so.
Mhm.
What I'm taking in is that there's gonna be an increase from JA, we don't know how much.
Mhm.
And our member libraries' budgets are stretched tight.
Mhm.
And so SALS as SALS entity in our budget that Bob always goes over with us,
Mhm.
we may have to redo that budget and put more of our contribution into JA and less into something else. Am I right? Is that what you're trying to say or no?
I don't know what to say because I don't know what formulas are gonna come. I haven't seen the numbers for 2026 yet.
So,
We know
so
we're okay for 2020.
I guess I'm very comfortable with the messaging that says that we as SALS are collectively attentive and wary of stretching the already tightly stretched budgets of the member libraries. I like that message a lot. I just don't want the expectation to be set that SALS will adjust its budget offerings to minimize or eliminate those, because I don't know that we know that yet.
And that's your call, not mine.
I get it, but often, that's good, I like that, and I think that we should roll around in that a little bit, decide what as we get more data, to understand that. I think that before we even know what that is, we need to establish what the appropriate messaging is to the libraries that we talk to.
And that's why we need to be at that meeting on December 11th to hear. And hopefully we're gonna get some more information before that meeting to share with everyone.
So I guess my punchline for bringing this whole thing up was the meeting on the 11th strikes me as a great opportunity for the SALS community to gather data on the JA thinking for what this is gonna mean operationally or budget wise. More than it is for SALS to state a position or opinion or a framework for how we might respond to it.
That's fair. It's step one.
Sarah, when does the JA budget get approved? I should know that already.
We just approved the 2025 budget. Michelle is probably working on a rough idea of what 2026 is gonna look like.
And when would that go out to the libraries where they would have to?
It comes here first.
Right, I understand that.
In January, we're gonna have to do something. Because JA is gonna meet in January and either approve or not approve whatever the cost would be. And then it comes to the MBLS board and the SALS board for final approval. I'm glad we had this conversation. Just going back a little bit, I really want to thank the JA staff and Jill Ryder for their professionalism this entire year. It's been quite a year. And they have been working nonstop on this, and the thoroughness and the professionalism and the materials and information coming out through something that we have not ever done before has been terrific. So kudos to the JA staff and Jill Ryder for everything. Now that we've given everybody a heart attack, our AED has arrived and the training will be done in the new year. And if you take a look, Pam has a little, it's set up right where everybody could see it. So I want to talk a little bit about our core values and the mission of SALS, because that's why we're here. So our mission is to provide leadership, effective and efficient services, continuing education and technology to support member library services to all residents of Hamilton, Saratoga, Warren, and Washington counties. So that's just our mission. Our vision is to work with our member libraries to provide exceptional services to support thriving, resilient communities in Hamilton, Saratoga, Warren, and Washington counties. So I wanted to share with you what the American Library Association's core values are. And you have that in your folders. So I'm not going to do a whole lot of reading, but I am going to share that. The ALA core values articulate the profession's principles and highest aspirations. They are meant to guide and unite library workers, including staff, volunteers, trustees, and advocates, and others who contribute their talents, expertise, and dedication to furthering SAL's mission. And as we make our decisions going forward from this meeting on, I wanted to just touch upon what they are. Access provides opportunities for everyone in the community to obtain library resources and services with minimal disruption. Equity. Library workers play a critical role in fostering equity by actively working to dismantle barriers and create spaces with minimal disruptions. Intellectual freedom, privacy. Intellectual freedom empowers people to think for themselves and to make informed decisions while respecting each other, individuals' dignity and independence. Public good. Public good is working to improve society and protect the rights to education, literacy, intellectual freedom. Libraries are essential public good and fundamental institutions in democratic societies. And sustainability. Sustainability means making choices that are good for the environment, make sense economically, and treat everyone equitably. Sustainable choices preserve physical and digital resources and keep services useful now and into the future. And we, as a board, and all of our member libraries and their boards need to continue advocating for the freedom to read in public school libraries and for adequate funding to support school, public, academic, and library systems. So now I'm going to segue into something else. Hamilton County called me yesterday and invited me to a supervisors meeting to talk about how Hamilton County library funds are being used and the impact that they have on residents. They've never done that before. And Saratoga County, while we are very, very, very grateful we made it into their draft budget, they reduced us by $5,000. So we need to advocate to not only give us back the $5,000, but to give us more. And I hope this isn't a trend that's going to be treading on our core values and our mission and our vision.
Can I just interject one observation? I try to attend most town of Waterford board meetings. And so they are doing their budget now. Lucky them, they get to do the budget, 2 months in advance of the year instead of the way the library operates, that we have to do it. Anyway, they are doing a tax cap override of 5%. COVID money has dried up, and the expenses for contributions to the retirement system, and there was one other big hit. So I would suspect that might be a factor countywide. So just an observation.
So, you as trustees here and in your libraries have to put on your advocacy hat, because our core values say we're there to provide access. I've been reading articles where libraries are that third space where people in the community are coming to gather, and we're being used more, and the trend is going up since the pandemic. But we're fiscally conservative and fiscally careful, but we're not free. And I just want to put a wonderful, happy holiday message I'm sharing with you all, but it's something that I'm seeing projecting forward. And I didn't want to not bring that to your attention. I'm going on vacation. I'm going on a 2-week vacation. I've never taken a 2-week vacation before. So I'll be gone from 11/25 and returning on 12/9. And in case we go off on tangents or whatever, working with all of you is a sincere pleasure. And I wish everyone a happy holiday. I'll see you like at the end of this meeting, but as a collective body, maybe we'll see you in Clifton Park on the 11th. And then we'll meet again in January. That's the end of my oral report.
I'm sorry, the number again of the Saratoga county cut was?
We asked for
142.
50,000. They gave us 35. Last year they gave us 35,000, and in the recommendations it's 30,000. So it's time to call your supervisor, Saratoga County residents, and say, this is something that enriches the value. It falls into our mission and into our vision.
We use it specifically for ebooks. That's how we use it. So less money, less ebooks, and we talked about, yeah, looking at what the usage was from Saratoga, because it's the most, right, that Jack said, so.
Yeah, do we have the numbers on that so we can send it to our supervisor?
Jack? We need the numbers of use for Saratoga
It's-
County.
That letter that I sent you this morning, that has all of that information in it.
We have it, but I haven't distributed. Okay, good. And then we're doing something similar for Hamilton County. Nothing like an up meeting. Let's.
Oh, and just for the curious, the usage in Saratoga from 2016 until 2023 is up 122%. So it's seen a massive amount of increase. So, and I don't think we've ever seen an increase in the funding that Saratoga County has ever given us.
And we also have to be very vocal when we advocate for libraries with the state. Because that's where our funding comes.
Sarah, is your message to Hamilton gonna be statistical stories? What's your approach?
We're gonna have the data, and then member directors from Hamilton County are coming to tell the stories about the impact it makes on the people in their community.
Okay. Makes sense. I think there's a lot of people in library world who recognize the good that libraries do, that is completely unknown to people who are not in library world. And I know this because as I became more and more in library world, I was stunned by the use models outside of my use model. Like I never went to reading with the dog kind of a thing, or I never went to that, you know, that kind of stuff, because it just wasn't my neck of the woods. And through being in the library, I recognize how substantially the library is interleaved with the society and community, that I think that these folks who don't use it that way won't recognize. Oats. I mean, oats. You
Go
got
on
it.
and on.
Yeah, you just gotta.
And, you know, to back up what Tom said, we take it so for granted because we're in the library world and, you know, your director's putting on a program for seniors and she's got the dog thing, she's got this going on. And, you know, when we make our presentation to our town board, she talks about, you know, these different things and they are like totally not aware of all these things that are going on. What do you mean there's food for free in the library? What do you mean there's a mahjong group? What do you mean there's a knitting group? You know, they just don't realize that all this is going on in the library. They happen not to come into the library very much.
Jack tells a great story about, maybe it was was it the Clifton Park Library, Jack? A story about somebody came in and said he was so you can tell the story, the AARP and oats. Can you paraphrase that, Jack? Not to
Are
put
you
on
talking about the
spot.
story about the gentleman that came in? He had signed up for an oats project or an oats class on computer basics, I believe. And he came in and he said to one of the clerks, you know, I'm going to take my name off the list. I've worked with my hands for the last 40 years. There's no way I can learn how to move a mouse around. And the clerk convinced him, well, just go to the one class and then, you know, see what happens. And afterwards he wrote a letter saying, or he wrote some comments saying, you know, I didn't think I could do this, but I did and I can. And I thought that was a pretty powerful story. And I think there was someone else that said something along the lines of, I just attended the hippest class in town. Who would have thought it was the library and AARP partnering together?
We have to be loud and we have to tell our happy stories
Mhm.
and not be spiraling off because some things aren't good.
And as Tom said, they have to brag at this meeting to Hamilton County because we take it for granted that people know this. And so we don't bother to tell all these things because we just, you know, like, it's like, why are we bragging about this? It's just common stuff that we do all the time. So they have to be brave enough to say things that they think is small because the other people don't know.
having sat on, been a councilman on a town board for 20 years, the town board in Greenwich. It's tough at budget time because the library is competing against the fire department, the highway department. Those are the two biggies. And it's tough to, make that determination. And there's more. I mean, obviously I was in both worlds at that point. And it's tough for people that are not in the library world to understand the value of the library as compared to their house burning down or their roads. And it's a really tough, negotiating when you have to do that,
The task at hand is to make it tougher,
right?
because the easiest thing in the world is to dismiss that portion you don't know about or care about, right? So that's very much the mission.
And even though there are so many good things going on in all of the libraries, and I'm just constantly amazed that Sarah in my library in Greenwich, always thinking outside the box, and I go to that library several times a week, and there's always a buzz. There are kids everywhere. There are old ladies knitting in a corner in the stacks, and there's all kinds of things going on, and it's just wonderful. It works. It's
There's
great.
even a composting
And
pile out
yet-
in the back.
I was gonna say,
Yes.
you got worms, you got worms.
Yes. Every time she
There's a
comes
worm,
up with
yeah.
something, and yet there was that, something posted in a Greenwich group. Once again, she came up with this idea I thought was great. Tractor parades coming up, and she thought, we could have people sit in our library, which is right there on Main Street with huge windows watching out. And you could be out of the cold and, it would be limited engagement, no guarantee of parking. But, if you register and there's a suggested donation, and immediately people leaped on that, people who don't go to the library, and said, no other establishment in town is charging money. Of course, there are places that are inviting people in and serving them and taking money for it, but they just couldn't wrap their head around how the library could take money for people sitting and watching the parade. And of course, people responded immediately, but there's just that to remember that you had mentioned before, is that people who never go to the library, I almost feel like we should assign people to buddy up with those people and bring them in and show them what is there. The library rethinks, it just,
I'm gonna
it's
share,
always,
that's such a great story, thank you. I'm gonna share, I was at Mechanical yesterday, and I keep on telling you, that's my most favorite thing, is to visit the different libraries and talk to their boards. And Mechanicville, they felt that Mechanicville needed a boost. And the library organized a Veterans Day parade. And they had a float and did all of this stuff. And the positive feedback from everybody was, wow, thank you, this is what we need. People are coming out of the woodwork. There were so many people at this parade that they had to figure out, they had to stop the parade to allow it to keep on going, because they could only do a certain parameter. This is so fabulous. Oh, the collective hive mind of so many talented people that care about the community. Okay, I'm really done.
Thank you for the conversation, everyone, and let's do those committee reports. I don't think there are any committee reports, so we'll go through this quickly. Audit and finance, Tom?
No report.
Building, Christine?
Well done.
Well done.
Yeah, I personally was out there pressing
Yeah.
down the edge.
Are you in charge of the noise?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, bylaws committee. Laura?
No.
No. Central Library Aid, Margaret?
No.
County Aid coordinators, anyone?
I gave a little bit of a report.
You did. Library services, Elaine is not here. Personnel,
Yes, we have the employee handbook is going to be ready to be reviewed, so my committee
should meet in December, and maybe you can do that either virtually or together. And review it because it'll probably come to this board meeting in January, so. That's something we have to set up with the.
And Janet, trustee nominating.
So we're working on it.
Working on it.
You know, we have a couple possibilities and we have a couple people who've accepted, so.
Or putting their names.
Putting
forward.
their names forward, have accepted a nomination.
They'd be up to the board to determine.
So hopefully we'll have everything lined up to,
So by April or
Work on
so,
we better.
we'll be back up to strength, okay? No unfinished business, space needed for the Saratoga Springs Public Library's volunteer staffed library literacy services.
This is something that's coming to you and maybe you want to think about it. I'll share some information with you and then we could decide in January. We were approached by the literacy group in Saratoga that they've run out of space in the library and they were wondering if they could hold some tutoring in this building. We're not really open to the public, but it's part of our mission and literacy is a core value. And they would have to book the room ahead of time and anything that was SALS or library related would take precedent. But it's something that I think you should think about and let me know. And we can talk about it in January. Erica, Pamela, did I forget anything?
Just that it would only be during our open hours.
Correct.
So when you say we're not open to the public, is it okay for them to meet, or is there like some hard and fast?
I think the board would say, yes, we're making an exception, and I would want them to have some kind of insurance rider that that protects us.
And which room were you thinking they would use?
It could be this room, or it could be the other conference room, the training room, the lovely green training room.
All right, well, we will think about that. Thank you. We need to approve the letter of engagement with UHY for our audit. So do you want to talk about that, Bob?
Sure. The letter that we presented basically is the same letter that we get each year. And the only thing that's really different in it is the price. And of course, the price went up. With a few of us were talking about this ahead of the meeting, that I really dislike the 2.5% that they always add in for administrative. I don't know why they don't just include that in the price, because they always add the 2.5% in. So the cost of the $10,762.50. This past year, we spent $9,225. So when Colleen and I are recommending that the board recommend that we do, not for 2025, we basically, the audit is in January and, you know, we need to sign this letter and go forward, but I think it's time to send out a request for proposals. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people, a lot of auditors in that space for not-for-profit, quasi-government agency audits. And we'll see what we'll get, and maybe this is a good price, but maybe it's not, but it's.
What was the price again?
10-7.
How much was it? $10,762.50 with the 2.5% added in. If that's 2.5% is for their out-of-pocket expenses for making copies and mailings but they always charge it. So I mean, it's.
Waterford has yet to find an auditor.
Yeah, it's tough to find anybody that will do not-for-profits or, you know, government agencies, but I think we should give it a try. We're gonna start early in the year and that will give us plenty of time, and we may end up right back with UHY. It's tough when you switch auditors because we basically have to train them the first year or two, and it'll double the time probably the first year.
Yeah.
That, you know, that we have to spend, mainly Colleen. But, you know, it is something that I think we should go through the effort, but that's up to the board to decide if we want us to go through that. And in January, we should probably, you know, if we want to do it, pass a resolution saying that we want to do a request for proposals. So basically, Carol has to sign the engagement letter,
Got it right
and I
here,
have to sign it,
right?
and you have to authorize us to sign it. Well,
Is your January an RFP and RFQ?
Yeah, that's a good, we'll have to think about which way we wanna do that. Probably an RFP.
Okay. Interesting.
We thought we would start doing some of the footwork.
After the audit.
After the auditors.
Not while they're sitting at the table explaining things to us.
Right after that.
After we get the letters, it's fine.
I'll move for the board to sign if you're calling for motion.
Yeah, I am calling for a motion. So I have a motion from Tom to sign the letter with UHY, Margaret or Christine. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much for that. So now we have, okay, some of these things. We need to approve Alex Gutelius to the JA Council for the 3-year term beginning in January. Is there anything that needs to be said about that? Christine, are you making a motion?
Yes.
Is anyone making seconding? Janet, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, and the same for Michelle Barron for a 3-year term.
So I have a question about this. Is this to replace Tim? Okay.
Yeah, it was Tim, but yeah.
And is there a makeup thing of the JA council? Like how many? Okay,
I'll share it. But this is in the middle of the motion.
That's okay. So, but are there any questions? I do not know Michelle Barron, so people may have questions. Are there any questions about this nomination? Second, I have a motion to accept Michelle Barron for a 3-year term. Christine, a second. Sue, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, so we have some minimum standard variance request forms, which you should have seen in the links from the agenda. So the first one is from Boston Spa. There's 2 from Boston Spas. And what I understand about Boston Spa is that they have had a variance from these standards and they are now in compliance, so they need to let the state know that they are in compliance. Do I have that right, Sarah? Okay, so we should do these one at a time. The first is concerning the Boston Spa Public Library bylaws. They are now posted on their website as they are supposed to be. Can I have a motion to accept this variance? We need to accept it, sign it, and send it to the state. Margaret and Laura, and all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The second one is also from Boston Spa. It is a variance that their report to the community is also now posted on the Boston Spa Public Library website. So this is an update to that variance. Do I have a motion to approve the variance? Janet, is there a second? Sue, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, Fort Edward, the librarian there, is working to get her 2 years necessary for the standard of requirement for the library director. We have approved this in the past. She has done 30 of the 60 credits that she needs to in order to be qualified for the position. So we need to approve that she will continue to work to get the second 30 credits for the 2 years that she needs, the 60 credits that she needs. Any questions or discussion about that? Can I have a motion to approve? Laura, is there a second? Sue, all in favor? Thank you.
She's trying hard.
She is trying hard. That's a lot to take on. Hudson Falls, has had a variance in the past to, give an extra time to write a 5-year strategic plan. They are asking for another variance because they have not yet written their 5-year strategic plan. There were extenuating circumstances, including the illness of their library director. Is there any discussion on this one? I hope you all have a chance to read it. If there's no discussion, would anyone make a motion to approve this variance? Sue, is there a second? Linda, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. And Stillwater, with their beautiful new building. They are now able to have handicap access and a teen section. So, I think this is a variance to state that they are now in compliance with their building requirements. Any questions or discussion? I have a motion to pass, to approve. Margaret, second. Tom, all in favor? Thank you. And final one, Stillwater again, with their beautiful new building. I haven't been in it yet. I need to stop in there. We are now in complete compliance for spacing or shelving is not only adequate in number, but space to allow full accessibility. Any questions about this motion? Okay, I need a motion to approve this variance. Janet, is there a second? Sue, all in favor? Thank you. I want you to know that I got through all of them. I didn't have to look at any name tags to know who you were. Which for me is good. Not that I don't know who you are. Okay. So add nominations for the 2025 annual meeting. Do we need to discuss that further?
It's in development and names will come forward in January.
Thank you. Is there a director's council report?
We have one. Deborah Flint.
Hello, I'm Deb
Hello.
Flint. This has been very interesting, I must say. I'm the director of the Galway Public Library, and I'm the current chair of the Directors Council. And Sarah had asked me to come and introduce myself and tell you a little bit about the Directors Council. Probably most of you know, but just in case you don't, the council meets every other month via Zoom. And it gives all the SALS library directors a chance to meet and share information and concerns or ask questions. The SALS staff join us and they give us updates on upcoming events and tell us what's going on system-wide. And we really appreciate that. And sometimes vendors will meet with us as well. Our latest meetings have included discussions about what it will mean for SALS and for SALS libraries when Schenectady does leave JA. I know that's a concern for a lot of us, but we're in a wait and see mode, obviously, as everyone is. I will ask at the next council meeting in December if there's anything they want me to talk to you about the next time you meet. For now, I guess my only question is, do you have any questions for me?
Oh, would you brag? Would you tell about your recent award, Deb?
I did not. I can do
I
that
think
if
you
you'd like.
should.
The Galway Library was awarded the NYLA PLS Innovative Program of the Year Award for the Public Library System in conjunction with the Memories from Survivors just exhibit that we're able to have here because SALS and Assemblywoman Carrie Warner had gotten us to be able to do throughout the SALS libraries. So we really appreciated that. We did a series of 12 programs and activities that were in conjunction with that exhibit, and we got a lot of really good feedback with it. And I thought it was really important to do now, especially because people need to remember what happens when you forget that everyone is a human being. And so I thought it was important to do that. So I was really pleased that we won. A, I was shocked, but B, I was very pleased because my staff worked really, really hard on it and I'm very, very proud of them. So,
Congratulations. Thank you for joining us. We're glad you're here, and we look forward to more reports. That's great.
Okay.
Any other questions for Deb? Okay, we've gotten through the agenda. Are there any other announcements? You need to sign your travel reports if you're turning one in, and our next meeting is January 21st, 2025. So, happy holidays, happy New Year.